The Haunting of Hollow Creek. Holly, Brenda, and Allison had been best friends since grade school. Every Halloween, they chose the creepiest spot they could find to share ghost stories and candy until midnight. This year, they decided to visit the infamous Hollow Creek cabin, an abandoned, decrepit house deep in the woods, said to be haunted by the spirit of an old caretaker, Mr. Graves. Legend had it that he never forgave the town for abandoning him in his final days, and now he haunted the cabin, forever searching for unwelcome visitors. With backpacks filled with snacks and flashlights, the three friends trekked through the forest under a full moon. The wind whistled through the trees, and leaves crackled beneath their boots as they neared the dark silhouette of the cabin. A faint smell of rotting wood hung in the air, and a single crow watched them from a nearby branch, as if waiting for something. "Maybe this isn't such a good idea," muttered Brenda, hugging herself against the sudden chill that crept through the air. "Oh, come on," Holly said, forcing a grin. "It's just a creepy old house. Besides, it's tradition." Allison nodded in agreement, though her eyes darted nervously toward the cabin's windows, which appeared black and empty in the moonlight. Inside, the cabin was as ominous as they had imagined. Dust covered every surface, cobwebs hung in thick clusters from the corners, and the faint echo of dripping water could be heard from somewhere deep in the house. They settled on the floor, forming a small circle as Holly pulled out her flashlight, casting eerie shadows that danced along the walls. Allison was the first to tell a story, a simple tale of a girl lost in the woods. They laughed nervously as the tale ended, and Brenda took over, adding dramatic sound effects to her story of a haunted lake. But as she finished, a loud creak echoed through the cabin, freezing them in place. "Did you hear that?" whispered Holly, her voice trembling slightly. "It was probably just the wind," Allison said, trying to convince herself as much as the others. But the atmosphere had shifted. The temperature had dropped noticeably, and the small circle of friends huddled closer together. Then, a faint whisper drifted through the air. "Get out!" They all froze, eyes widening in horror. The voice was raspy, echoing off the walls. Brenda's flashlight flickered and died, plunging them into almost complete darkness, save for the faint moonlight seeping through the cracked windows. They scrambled to turn on their phones for light, but every device suddenly seemed to drain of power. In the dim, eerie glow, Holly spotted something horrifying. A figure, its face gaunt and twisted, eyes hollow and watching, stood by the doorway, its bony hand outstretched toward them. It looked like the sketches of Mr. Graves they'd seen online, his mouth stretched into an unnatural grin. Holly, Brenda stammered, her voice shaking. "Run!" Holly yelled, pulling her friends up. They dashed out of the cabin, stumbling and screaming, branches tearing at their clothes as they sprinted back through the woods. They didn't dare look back until they were safely outside the tree line, panting and shivering. When they finally caught their breath, Holly looked back toward the cabin, now barely visible in the distance. In one of the upper windows, the figure stood, watching them, his hand pressed to the glass, waving slowly as if saying goodbye. The girls never spoke of that night again, and they never returned to Hollow Creek. But sometimes, in the silence of a crisp autumn night, each of them could still hear that voice, whispering from the shadows, "Get out."